All right. So thank you all for being here. Once again, this is the Amazon Lily Roundtable. We have a group, an amazing group of people here to discuss some, I hope, are interesting issues. Well, you'll find out. You'll be the judge of that, whether any of this is actually interesting. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for being here. I'm going to go around introducing everyone first. So I will start with my illustrious co-host, City Cat. Hey, City Cat, nice to have you back. With a brand new look, and you look fantastic.
Thank
So there's that.
you.
Yeah, okay. Tell the audience about yourself.
I'm anime cat girl leftist gamer, really based, really adorable. I like to spew leftist talking points, and you just can't keep your eyes off of me. So that's me. I'm happy to be here today.
There is literally, of all the people have come on my channel, and quite a lot have, you are literally the only one who actively describes yourself as adorable. Like, literally, no one does that. This is a you thing, and not anyone else. And I like that. I like the confidence, right? Stating out loud, right? Like, in case you didn't notice, yes, like I'm,
Yeah, in case you didn't notice, I'm fucking adorable, and
yeah.
I want the attention from it, please.
All right. Well, thank you for being here once again, City Cat. Always very much appreciated. Next, Riverboat Jack. This is your third time here, I think, maybe.
I think so, somewhere in there, second
Yeah.
or third time.
Well, we're having a lot of fun with you. At least I am. So thank you. No, I mean, thank you for coming back. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
All our previous conversations have been really fruitful. So I'm pumped that you're here again.
Heck yeah. Um.
Uh,
Oh,
Tell the audience about yourself.
yeah. I'm a socialist. I do politics things on Twitch. I talk about all kinds of different stuff. I also talk about LGBTQ issues. I'm trans. I talk about trans issues a lot. Um, yeah, I just kind of generally do those things. I was a game journalist for like a decade. I know a lot about games. I talk about games a lot too. So yeah, I mean that's me in a nutshell, basically. Freelance writer and editor. If anyone's looking for for one of those, I guess
I
as well.
find that amazingly interesting. I did not know that.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Um.
I've also
Uh,
worked on a few games too, like but behind the scenes.
oh really? Okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right. Well, maybe we can talk about that some other time. Just like
absolutely.
about the things you've worked on. This is amazing. I find that whole side of the industry just fascinating. I hardly ever get to talk to anyone who does that. So yeah, let's do
For
that
sure.
sometime.
I'm down for it.
Uh, Next, we have another returning champion. Hello, High Priestess. It was really nice to have you in the All Black Everything panel the other time. I thought you were pretty funny. I thought you were pretty interesting. So thank you for stepping by here.
Thanks so much for having me again. I can't believe I have to follow that up now. All right, let me I'm gonna give this
No, I
a
mean, no
shot.
pressure.
I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm new to streaming. I started about 7 months ago. I play games. I rage. I try and get my life together live on camera. Honestly, that's about it. Oh, and I talk a lot about childcare and child development because I work in a daycare, and that's the thing that interests me the most probably right now.
Daycare. Okay. All right. I thought maybe you were like kindergarten because you were telling early childhood education, but you mean like the first thing. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I work with infants.
Oh, all right. Fun, fun, fun. All right. Well, thank you for being here once again. Uh, Now we have a new person we've been trying to get on the panel previously. We had some issues, but they are here now, and we are very grateful for that. Hello, Kay Fellows. How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me, finally.
Yeah, audio seems to be working, video, everything is looking fantastic. Before it was like the video when you that first time you tried looked like you were in like a hostage situation. Like Because
Well,
you
you
only
know, I
see
have
from
2
the
toddlers. It very well could have been a hostage
maybe.
situation.
Okay, fair enough. All right. But yeah, thank you, Ellen, for resubbing. Welcome back to Rich Generation. But yeah, Kay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Kay. I am a part-time political activist, full-time housewife and mom. I'm a libertarian, a huge child activist for child welfare. I do a lot of stuff on pedophilia and child endangerment issues. I'm also a pro-life activist, and I identify as a libertarian. It's the political ideology that I align with the most.
Mhm.
That being said, I think the LP is trash. But uh, whenever people want to have an idea of my political views, I'm a libertarian.
Okay, all right. A lot of things to explore there. Maybe one day
Yeah.
I will do that. Yeah, I would love to explore that with you. Like, oh my God, sounds like so much fun. But hopefully you'll want to come back. Yeah. You remind me of with the purple hair. There is a. Are you familiar at all with video games? Like, are you like a gamer?
Absolutely not. No, this
Okay,
is
never
my
mind.
husband's setup, so
Okay, all right.
he's the
You remind me.
gamer.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You remind me of the character from a fighting game series with the purple
Yeah,
hair.
yeah, like Waluigi.
Waluigi? What? No,
See, I'm actually
no.
familiar with that character.
All right, but no, I wasn't gonna call
Prime-
you
Pri-
a dude. No, Tekken.
Yeah, which Tekken character is it? It's killing me that I can't remember.
I can't remember her name either. She's a ninja, right? She wears the
Yeah.
she wears it in the sash that around her, with the yellow sash. Someone in chat. Yeah, Tekken girl
Chat,
with the purple hair.
get this for us. Come on.
I don't remember her name, but she looks just like her right now. Like, all right. Anyway, sorry, I'm highly distracted. Anyway, you look very nice. It was a compliment.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. I have been told so many times because my hair's been purple like 4 times and every time it's been on accident and everybody's like, "You look like an e-girl." I was like, "I don't even know what that means." Like
It's a compliment.
They
It's a
think that
compliment.
you're hot and may or may not be shaming you for being sexual, depending on who's saying
I felt like there was like that connotation there.
it. Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, I'll roll with it. Whatever."
I might seriously look up the character. Like, wow, killing me now. I think like a Yumi or something along those lines. All right. But next, hello, Catherine Dominates. Catherine Dominates. Thanks for coming through. Catherine
yeah.
Dominates has been kind enough to help us out with Amazon Lily, and we are very much grateful for that. Catherine, tell the audience about yourself.
Hell yeah. So I didn't want to get shown up by CityCat, so we typed out plain and speech. We are a fucking rad as hell intersectional cultural revolutionary, actively in the process of decolonizing and de-indoctrinizing ourselves and learning about our lost historical and spiritual roots in witch and queer culture and attempting to rebuild from an unadulterated, holistic view of history, a coherent worldview, not just for ourselves, but for society as a whole. That's the kind of things we do over on our Twitch channel.
Okay.
She does Twitch emotes, and she's really good at it. So message her.
Ooh, I might
That
have
is
to hit you
also
up.
true. Chat, do me a favor and just spam some of those so people can see how awesome they are.
Okay. So next, last but absolutely not least, we have Tumble Dryer Maya, correct?
Yeah, that was really good. I'm very chuffed with the pronunciation of Maya. No one ever gets it right.
Did I just do it?
Sorry, I'm so bad at the buttons. You did, yes, Maya,
Oh.
like a tire.
Oh, okay, awesome, great. Touring News actually kind enough to link us up. He thought that Tumble. Would you like to prefer Tumble or Maya? What's your preference?
6.5 dozen. I honestly don't mind.
Okay, fine. So Touring News was kind enough to help us meet, and he said, we think that she'd be a great addition to the panel, and I'm really glad that he did that for us. So thank you, Touring News. And Tumble, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm Maya or Tumble. don't mind. I'm 19. I am a student still. I do English and psychology. I don't know how I forgot that. I read a lot. I stream mostly politics, sometimes just chatting, very occasionally games, but I'm painful to watch at them. I'm so bad, so I try to limit that because it's not a nice experience for either party. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being here. All right. So we'll get started. I can find it. In fact, City Cat, if you want, you can read the topics.
All right, that's my job. Okay. Um. Okay. So, topic number 1. Okay. So we're gonna go around through opening statements and then open it up to discuss. Yeah. So, oh my God, a name. Mary Wollstonecraft was an English 18th century writer and philosopher, often dubbed the mother of feminism. Last week, a statue of her was erected in London Park. The statue sparks outrage because it depicts Mary without clothing. Do you think the statue was disrespectful? Is it wrong to depict a historical feminist in the nude, especially when she fought against sexualization of women? Shouldn't we give artists leeway to express themselves, etc., etc.? Yeah, so we'll go around. Let's go with Riverboat.
Okay.
Before we do that, though, I just want to introduce.
Oh yeah, Joe's here. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Kat. Looking really cute. Hey, guys.
Welcome
Hey,
the heck in,
friend.
Joe.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you as always, Joe. Yeah, thanks for stopping by once again. Joe's another one of our illustrious hosts, and we're so happy that she could spend a bit of her time today. So yeah, we're like just getting started with the first topic about the statue, which Joe was the one who let me know about. I credit her with that question. So yeah, we're just doing introductions in here. You said Riverboat Jack then first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where I think art is very open to interpretation. Art has a lot of different meanings, a lot of different ways that it interacts with people and how people perceive it and read it to be. And I find this very interesting because a lot of people, I guess, assume that the statue is supposed to be of Mary Wollstonecraft when like looking into it, I guess the artist who made the piece said that she was not trying to depict Mary Wollstonecraft. She was trying to depict like the idea of the feminine, like something that feminine people could identify with as kind of like some sort of almost like platonic ideal, which that has its own kind of problems in itself because everyone's going to have different ideas of what that means. So this might have been just like a project where like there's no pleasing anybody, but I'm also not sure if the artist was commissioned initially to actually make a Mary Wollstonecraft statue, like a statue of Mary Wollstonecraft, and then just like went a different direction with it entirely and then delivered this and had their own interpretation of it. So I'm not entirely sure of like the surrounding circumstances in that regard, but as it is, I think it is a fine statue. It's very pretty to look at. That largely, I think, does what at least the artist wants it to do, but what the public wants it to do is another matter entirely. And I think that's up to a much more interesting debate.
Yeah. Okay. Kay.
And before this happens, okay. Oh, you already did that. Nice work, Jesslyn. I was just going to I'll put another article in chat to let the audience know like what exactly we're talking about. So again, it's a statue of a supposed to be of a feminist, and it's in London. Obviously, we can't show it on stream, but Desolate Mirror was kind enough to put the image in chat. But there's also an article there talking about it. So it's just for the audience. So go ahead.
I think that this is one of those issues where, society's idea of what is and is not inherently sexual kind of is given the spotlight. Just because a woman is nude does not mean that society as a whole or individuals have to sexualize her, and that is a choice, a conscious choice made by the individual whenever you see a statue of a woman. And as Robot Jack pointed out, she's trying to portray femininity in a statue, which, you know, femininity is incredibly subjective, which art is supposed to be subjective. And the fact that, you know, people were initially outraged and jumped to the idea that having a woman's body exposed meant that she wanted to be sexualized or was sexualizing herself is, you know, a deep-rooted societal issue that, you know, I could go on for hours and hours and hours about. But that's just my opinion on the issue.
Yeah, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm sort of echoing what Kay was saying. Like, a nude woman is not sexual, and like nudity has been part of the feminist movement forever, and it's going to continue to be a part of it, because even on this very platform, someone who is identified as a male, like PrimeCayes, can go topless and show nipples, but a woman can't do that. And that's because there's all these weird taboos about sexuality, and that's a very important part of the movement. So it makes sense. And in particular, this figure, that's a small figure at the top of a larger statue, has nipples, vulva, and pubic hair, which is almost never part of statues of women. Most of the time, when you see an idealized platonic form of a woman, all of these details are sort of blurred off, and it becomes this weird, abstract object. And so I think it's particularly feminist to include these particular details in a statue like this.
Okay.
Yeah, Maya.
Sorry, I searched something and I forgot it was on camera and I wasn't sure if it was TIS. That's why I pulled that face. I wasn't pulling the face at what was being said. Sorry. I'm kind of torn. I think that on one side, you know, artists aren't responsible for how people interpret their art. But I think when the artist says thing, oh, did not mean to do that. Did I?
You're fine.
But you're okay.
I'm having a mess. When the artist says things like, this isn't verbatim, but it was like, oh, she's the shape we all want to be. No, thank you. I don't want to be that shape. And I think that, okay, what the artist was saying was trying to, you know, by getting rid of the clothing, you're kind of taking away the kind of like, you're making it more relatable because it's not as historical, and a nude figure can't really be pinpointed to a time because people have always been people. They've not always worn clothes, but underneath clothes they were still human beings with flesh and bodies. But I think saying that everyone, you know, this very slim figure is the ideal of all women, no, I don't want to look like that. I appreciate where the tone's coming from, but I just feel like it's a bit... Was the stuff you said really appropriate? The statue itself, not my favourite thing, but each their own. Not all art I'm going to like, that's fine. I just think that the artist, I don't know, the stuff said about it isn't great, so I kind of sit uncomfy on that side. But
Okay.
Yeah, Joe.
Okay, I did not think this would be the issue where I would disagree with so many of you. Like, honestly, I didn't think it would be this one. Okay, so first of all, it's not a nudity issue with the statue. There are plenty of statues of naked female bodies. It's not the issue necessarily. The issue is that it took 200 years for Mary Wollstonecraft to be recognized as even a philosopher, and then another decade for her to even be honored with a statue. And when she was finally honored with a commission of a statue, the artist decided, actually, I'm going to make it a statue of every woman, and presented the liberal ideal of what a female body should look like. As Tumble said, it's not an accurate representation of what every woman looks like. It's the liberal ideal of what a feminine body should look like. And she said that she did this to remove her from her context because Mary Wollstonecraft obviously has had such an incredible impact on feminism. I think it would be unnecessarily imperialist to say she's the mother of feminism, but her text is foundational. And I think it is actually so offensive to try and remove Mary Wollstonecraft from her context, because this is a woman who existed in a context where she was completely degraded and disregarded. Her political thought on power, on gender, on so many political things was tossed aside because she was a woman. And she died 11 days after childbirth because we care so little for mothers' bodies. We care about women performing as mothers, but we care so little for mothers' bodies. And so to remove her from a context where she was completely derided as insane and hysterical, when all she was asking for was a vindication of the rights of women. That's what she was asking for. And to remove her from the context that she was revolutionary in, to say that she is every woman, she's not every woman. She is Mary fucking Wollstonecraft, and she deserves to be honored by a statue of her, and her legacy deserves to be recognized. And it is frustrating that she is reduced to this tiny form on top of a big swell of stuff. And so for me, that's my contention, is that it's great you want to make something for every woman, but that exists. What doesn't exist is an accurate and proper and meaningful statue of someone whose philosophical contribution was incredible.
Yeah, Tony.
That shocked me to hear my name be called.
I did my research, Missy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Silly serious. I mirror that energy, even though I'm sick and I can't literally mirror that energy. I don't mirror your point, exactly and as eloquently as you did. But I think that I would like to start off my intro by saying I hate the statue. I just hate it. I'm not really gonna parse hairs here. It's an ugly statue. It's not like the woman is ugly. I think it's a stupid statue. And then I went and looked into it and I was like, why did she? And I just keep getting more and more mad about it. And it's like, why did she make her naked? Well, because clothes. Shut up. I just got so pissed off reading it. It really was annoying. It was nice to be able to read more about Mary. I honestly, she was nobody to me until literally today. So to me, it's very educational and a fantastic controversy. But in terms of making her naked and all of that, specifically, if we're going to have to be talking about making her naked, I would like to talk about the fact that we're talking about the fact that there's obviously it's not Mary, but there's a naked woman, and that's all we're talking about. It's like the female body is literally so enamoring and so distracting that a woman made a statue, like a woman sculptor sculpted the statue. We're not going to talk about that females were involved in the designing, the making, the donation collecting. There was a lot of female empowerment that went into empowering the statue. It's an ugly statue. It's terrible. But there was a lot more than just a naked lady on top of clay. I don't fucking know what it is. But, I think it's just, it really speaks to the issue, right? We're talking about boobs and butts still. In 2020, we're talking about boobs and butts. Are we going to move past it ever? Probably not.
Prime, did you want to do a statement?
Oh, I think the statue is hideous. I think it's weird that they did this idea of her springing forth from organic matter, like the combined bodies of women everywhere, and so springs forth this. There's so many things wrong with that thought and that imagery. It just bothers me on on a deep level. Yeah, I agree with Joe that it would have been more interesting to have a statue of this person. But it's more the statue itself just I feel was poorly planned. But at the same time, it seemed like there was some sort of a democratic process. There was some sort of there was some sort of selection process, right? I think votes were involved. So a lot of people signed off on this. So I mean, I don't want to put this all on the artist because there were other options and people didn't choose those options. This is what they wanted, right? So I don't want to put it all on this one person. I guess as High Priestess was pointing out, Like there was a litany of steps to get to this point, right? So I mean, are we blaming on them all, or maybe did they see something that we aren't seeing? I don't know. But I think there's room for honest disagreement on it. But I just think it's fucking hideous.
Yeah, okay. As for me, I think the fact that we have this like the fact that this is like a news thing is annoying to me. The fact that an artist was like, oh yeah, the woman's naked. Like, yeah, I agree, the statue's like ridiculous. I don't get it. I don't get a lot of art though, so that might be more of a statement about me than about the art. But like, this tiny, tiny little naked woman at the top of this statue has caused so much like public thing where it's like, holy shit, she's naked, and it's like, chill, okay? It doesn't matter. I feel like the fact that we're even being like, it's an outrage that she's like, do you know how many statues there are of men with just like penises just out? Like, and no one's like, that's ridiculous and that's disrespectful to them. People are just like, nice dick, and no one cares. And the second someone's like depicting a woman, the every woman thing is stupid. But like depicting a woman naked and like with tits and pubic hair, and it's a huge deal. I think it's stupid. I think that we need to chill. And if someone made a stupid statue, and the fact that there's outrage, has like Tony said, it brought like this woman into like I didn't know who this person was, and now I know her. Like, I feel like making controversial art about historical figures brings more attention to those historical figures. So I feel like it does more good than bad, because I don't feel like anyone's gonna see this statue and become a misogynist from it. Like, I don't think like anything bad is going to come from this piece of art. So I think that it is silly. I think that the fact that it costed like nearly $200,000 to make, I don't know why we do this with art. But that's a different conversation. I want to go to Catherine and then Jack.
Yeah. So a lot of the things people like Joe have brought up here, I don't think that they're an issue with this statue or the artist. The issue here is that it took a really long time for a statue of Mary Wollstonecraft to be put up, and there should be more of them. And there should be some statues where it is very specifically her being represented in her time. And there should be statues where literally it's her dying like 18 steps away from a cradle because she died 18 days or months later, whatever the specific thing was. And there should be a whole ton of different statues made by different artists that let different people interpret this historical event in the way that appeals to them, because no art is for everyone. I think it's really cool that this particular piece has this tiny little figure up at the top of this larger movement, because when it comes to feminism, it is just us women against the world, and that is captured in that aspect of that art as I interpret it, and that's really cool too. And for the spending portion of this, if there were multiple different drafts in art, like, why not spend the same amount of money to just say, here, make 3 different statues, and we won't do as much like oversight on what they turn out to be? That probably would have worked better. Yeah.
I just want to agree with Joe that it is absolute bullshit that it took 2 centuries for her to get a statue when she is, like, objectively one of like the forerunners of feminism, like, super important. And this is, I agree, an absolute oversight. And it is very, very weird that the first statue erected of her is like this end of Evangelion type statue with like a tiny little human arising from like a massive goo. Yeah, I think that's pretty weird. Yeah, I do.
That makes me very happy, that reference. Thank you for that.
But yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it is very symbolic, and I think it works as a symbolic statue, but maybe this wasn't the place for a symbolic statue when it's the very first one of, like, this important feminist historical figure. And Yeah, I do find it very. I would like to know even more about like the surrounding circumstances that led to the statue being erected, because if it was a democratic process, if it was this thing, like I mean, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable as like someone outside of that particular community coming in and saying, well, your democratic process was wrong to erect this particular statue. You know, I'm not sure how comfortable I am doing that.
Joe and then Maya.
Yeah, I mean, I think something we need to also be conscious of is that criticism is key to the art world. Criticizing a piece of art isn't detracting from art. It's an important part of the artistic tradition. And this deserves to be criticized because it's just, to be honest, one, like I normally wouldn't call something ugly or make a taste judgment if I can't see it in person, but given Corona, that is not going to happen. So the statue is ugly. But two, the statue was commissioned for a purpose and it has failed. And the reason I'm so mad about this, it is not to do with the fact that it's a naked body. It's to do with the fact that anytime any woman succeeds in any field, the publicity she gets is, oh, look how sexy she is. She's a neuroscientist, but look at her on the cover of Vogue and how beautiful she is. And it's like Mary Wollstonecraft actively petitioned against the sexualization of women, against the reduction to them to their bodies. So it's not that she wasn't sex negative. She had no issue with the freedom of the body. She did petition against clothes, which the artist brought up as well in her own defense, saying that clothes are a form of prison and they
Joe,
enshrine
very
gender
quickly, roles. It might be you are outraged against the objectification of her body and not sexualization.
It is that. It is, sorry, but it's like that is the correct terming, but that's not. Yeah. That's not even my point. Is that
sure.
The statue misses the point of who she was, and it is just frustrating. And I get exactly what Riverboat Jack was saying in terms of like we need more statues, etc. Of course, that is a solution, but if every time we recognize a brilliant woman in history, we reduce her contribution to a physical, ambiguous form that represents every woman and doesn't actually say anything or represent anything, we won't get any meaningful statues, because it's easy to walk past that and forget it and not see it as revolutionary, not see it as worthy art. This is forgettable art that makes no statement to honor Mary Wollstonecraft.
Yeah, I think.
Maya had her hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a big, in my opinion, obviously, it was a big waste of money. Why didn't they put her on the curriculum? Why didn't they teach her into school? She fought her whole life courageously with immense courage for education for all and human rights. So put that into practice. And put feminism on the UK curriculum. And also putting a nude statue, nothing wrong with that. But when males are, for example, given a statue for their contribution, like Alan Turing, there's that really famous statue. He was the one that helped crack Enigma and made the first computer, and saved millions of lives during the World War II. He was given this beautiful statue of immense likeness with his Enigma machine, the thing he fought his whole life to do, the thing our governments did to us because of who he was horrific. But they gave him the stuff that he loved, not the fighting, not the battling, but the thing that he loved and the thing that he fought his whole life to make. And other war memorials, they're always clothed. They're always clothed with their medals. So do we only value those people, mainly men, for their medals? Is it not them as a person? If we're saying that the only way that you can relate to people is if they're naked, then why do every single year the UK have this massive, poppy thing? I should know the words. I literally grew up on military bases. The poppies and such love for our veterans, and visit these memorials every year. Top Gear did this stunt around the memorial. Everyone was outraged, but they're clothed in periodic clothing and clothes from that period, but they're still relatable because we still see them for the ultimate sacrifice that they gave. But she isn't, and by making her naked and saying that this is every woman's ideal body, this is what every woman kind of strives to be like, is it that inclusive? Like, what about Muslim women who don't see themselves as their naked form? What about Jewish women who don't as well, or just women who don't feel connected? I think it's a bit naff, really. But yeah,
I don't feel like the artist was trying to say this is this is how every woman should strive to look. I don't feel like the artist was trying to do that like at all. I feel like as well making the body so small, I feel like this is so dumb. I feel like art can be interpreted in a million gajillion different fucking ways. And like I could look at this and say, they're saying that the body of the person is not important and that's why it's so tiny. And everything else that could be a representation of her ideas of what she did. I don't know. Like it can be so many different ways. I do not feel like the point of this art was about the body at all. I do not feel like it at any point they were like, this is like what every woman should look like. The term every woman is just supposed to be like a representation of every woman. And
but isn't that implicit, Kat? If they're saying it's for every woman, is it not implicit that the body represented?
What the fuck did you want it to look like? Did you want it to be fat? Did you want it to
look like Mary Wollstonecraft?
Well, then, no, like as a representation of every woman, how would you do that differently? If you were to make a statue of an every woman, how would you do it differently? She has pubic hair. She has normal sized tits. She's not corset skinny. It's a normal body, in my opinion.
That to me is the problem. This idea of a normal body. Like, I want art that's controversial and thought-provoking. I would rather have a statue that's fat or disabled or does something that actually provokes, and call it for every woman or every woman. Provoke people's ideas about what is normal.
There is.
I would say, what's the? Oh, you can go for it.
You go.
Well, what's the point of making this statue in honor of Mary Wollstonecraft? I feel like it was just a waste of time. And I know it's super aggressive to say a waste of time, but I think it's a complete waste. You could have made the statue towards feminism, you could have stuck any other feminist name on there and it would have done literally the same thing because, like you said, it's not her, so what was the point, right? But the statue is upsetting to me because we as in women, we don't get statues. So as the statue that we got, I'm disappointed. I didn't want that one. Take it back. Give me a statue of a woman doing something womanly or awesome or fat. I want a huge fucking statue of her too. I want it to be large. I want it to be really large. And I want it to be of the woman that it's supposed to be of as well. And then I want it to have something in the statue. And I don't mean to make this an echo chamber, but I want the statue to like represent what the person did. So I can see like, oh, she has a carriage. So maybe she's a mother or a motherly type figure. Like, I don't want to think that hard about my art. Like, just show me what the statue is supposed to be about. Like they have these generals on horseback with a sword or a gun. We get it. He fucking killed people really good. So good that they made a statue of him. So what did she do so good? It wasn't even up her.
She made clouds. See the big cloud? It's a cloud.
So
women fart. That's what
I want to add a bit of context from the artist, which is that the pillar that this figure is rising out of is supposed to be, like Prime sort of said, like this.
Yeah, the organic matter.
This organic matter. But the artist is trying to put shapes in that detail that we can't see because we're not physically there, that are supposed to represent other women and womanhood in general, sort of like pressing against the sides. It doesn't have to be good art that you like, right? We're just trying to underline the fact that there was some goal here. It's not as if this was malicious. And as an artist, when an artist makes a work that isn't what you were trying to commission, at least half of the blame is on the commissioner and not the artist, depending on the details. And so I want to stress this idea that it's probably not this particular artist's fault that were at large were not satisfied with this particular statue.
Yeah, I can definitely, like, looking at it, like, you can see the other bodies, like, pressing up in the big fart cloud underneath. But, like, yeah, I don't know what to say. Maya, you go, and then Kay, and then Jack.
Oh, my mind's gone blank. The artist, there's a direct quote from the artist saying, as far as I know, she's more or less the shape we'd all like to be. That's like that. She genuinely said that. And the artist was stating that, you know, we all know that clothes are limiting. I understand that to an extent, but I just think that why didn't they get someone like Grayson Perry? Brits like cheerful art. We want bright, colourful, eccentric things. We don't want serious, deep, meaningful art. And I think serious, deep, meaningful art is stunning and beautiful, and I do enjoy it. But I think the British public at large doesn't. And we have so many statues of Winston Churchill, who wasn't even a good man, was not even a good man, killed an immense amount of people, millions, I believe. Why do we have so many statues of him? All none controversial apart from the fact that he's a racist, or he was. Why does he get to be exactly as he chose to present himself? He chose to present himself in those clothes. He was, you know, he was put on statues in those clothes he chose to, but she gets the one thing that Mary got was this controversial one that, as we've said, doesn't even show her. If you want to make a feminist statue, make a feminist statue. But the runner-up one, it was I can't remember. Michael Jennings, I think. Martin Jennings. His one was stunning. It had a quill and a book and everything, and it made so much more sense than this one that's a lot more. I don't know. I don't feel like the British public likes tricky art. I think they like spoon-fed. This is what they were. This is who they were. This is what they did, and that is a little bit too tricky. And Brits are very, very prude about nudity. I don't think they should be. I think it's wrong. But I think that is a reason why it's sparking so much debate. A lot of people, and when I say people, I mean a lot of British people, are just looking for excuses to justify why they don't want to see a nude woman, let alone a nude woman with pubic hair. I think that's a little bit too much for Brits. I don't think it should have been too much. But
so to this point, then, I think the statue is doing something great and is not at all a waste. And it is a waste of a Mary Wollstonecraft statue. Or not there should be another better new Mary Wollstonecraft statue. But the fact that this statue happened is a wonderful jumping off point for a broader conversation that very clearly needs to happen. And I think that's good. And that the worst case scenario wouldn't have been this statue. It'd be any statue that just came out, didn't get much press, and didn't start off any controversy at all. That, to me, would be the worst case scenario.
Well, I didn't realize that I wanted more statues, so I think this was good. I need more statues, and I'm mad about it. Just like how racists are mad about us dragging down racist statues, I'm mad that you're not putting up more feminist statues. I'm pissed.
Hey, now there are a lot more empty pedestals in America, right?
I stand by my previous statement because when I first got started on Twitch, it was the middle of the whole, like, the height of the statues being pulled down here in the States. I stand by my statement then that, like, statues shouldn't be this permanent, unmoving thing, right? Like, once it's there, right, then it automatically gets some sort of historical context to it, like, oh, well, it's been there and it always should be there, right? Like it gets a level of permanence, which I think is undeserved. So, like, I think these images that, if we're going to say represent our society, that's what these things do, right? You look at these statues and it's like, oh, this is a great person, right? That, like, is being celebrated, and it somehow represents us in some way, right? And so But then you have statues of like Winston Churchill everywhere, right? Which maybe the UK public has moved away from. I think there's kind of got to be a continuous a reevaluation of all of our symbols, like not just statues, but just symbols in general, and not like, because what they end up being for me is like symbols of worship, right? Like secular worship. Like this is a thing. This is an important thing, right? And of course we can't change it, right? Like because why would we change the thing that we're worshiping, right? Like this is like it's been there for a few years, right, or a decade or more, and so we can't even talk about like reevaluating it. So that's what I'm in favor for. Just like let's rethink all these things, like on an ongoing basis. Is this a person we want? And I mean that for all of them, right? Not just like Confederate statues, not the ones I disagree with, but the ones I agree with, right? Like the Martin Luther King a memorial in Washington D.C., right? Let's rethink that in a few years. I think this just needs to be a continuous process.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like when all the statues were being kind of torn down, and when that was a really big thing, and people were saying that, oh, they represent history and we need to preserve them and put them in a museum. I think that tearing them down, I think that the people having to tear them down and throw these fuckers in rivers and behead them and shit like that, I think that is history. I think we're currently making history by tearing them down. And then, like, in 50 years or something, it can be like, oh, the people hated this person and they tore the statue down. And then that's the history now.
Hopefully someone will put up a statue of some of those fucking statues being torn down, and it'll be a statue of that mid tearing down, because that will be rad.
Perfect. Like the statue that was thrown in the river, put it back up covered in seaweed and shit. Like
yeah, off with the head. Yeah. Head separate from the body. Perfect.
Maya and then Jack.
I think that we were on the topic of pulling down statues. It's 2003, the Saddam Hussein statue. They're allowed to pull that one down. That one, there was a big celebration about pulling that one down. But the second anyone talks about pulling, like, I'm on about Winston Churchill, or there's Edward Colston. Edward Colston was the slave trader in I can't remember, somewhere in England. It was the really famous one being pulled down. That was horrible and wrong, and you can't pull statues down. I think maybe the issue, it was Bristol, yeah. Maybe the issue is that our government doesn't have comprehensive teaching of our full history. A lot of stuff in the UK is completely left out, completely wrong. I was taught so much just inherently wrong things about history and RMPS, which is religious, moral, and philosophical studies. It's just so inherently wrong until we have comprehensive education teaching our history. Why are you mad that we're pulling statues down? We know those statues are there. We have it written. There's not statues of tons of different things, like tons of statues from the World War II were pulled down and no one had a complaint because it was a side of history that they don't like. It's just because Brits are very up their own arses about statues, I think, especially old Churchill.
Yeah, no, I think that honestly this is a problem of like there's a multi-tiered problem here, right? Like Mary Wollstonecraft should have had a statue much earlier, should have had much more concrete statues of her, concrete representation, both in terms of like statues, but also in terms of like education, to Tumble's point. And other people have also made that point on this panel. But also, like, I don't think many of us would have a problem if this was a statue that was erected, like the third statue of Mary Wollstonecraft, right? Like, you might disagree that it's like the statue itself isn't like super effective or whatever, but it wouldn't be as big of a problem or have that as much of a problematic element, I guess, if it was not the first one. And when it comes to like what she would have wanted, I do think it is weird to kind of like make a decision for like women's bodies that doesn't necessarily have her consent. But anyway, it's a complicated issue, but I largely think that one of the most important things we can do, like if as an artist, is to have controversial work that makes a definitive point and causes a lot of conversation. Because even if you're having a conversation about how you don't like it, questioning why you don't like it is also part of the point. Like that is a constructive conversation in and of itself. And I think that like having the conversation we're having here is like part of the point of the piece. And I think through this conversation and by giving this a platform, thank you, Prime, we are helping to build the legacy of Mary Wollstonecraft in a positive way. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, even if the way we got to this statue is not necessarily ideal, which it certainly is not.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much to Luna for the gift tier 1 sub, to Trash Nomancer, and I want to go over to Tony because she had her hand up.
I think that point about history and education is super important, to the point where I'll do the echo chamber shit again. And I think that we don't. I'll switch it up. I'll give it my own little twist here. I think that we don't tell enough stories, and I think that we need to get into the habit and into the the enjoyment of spreading stories. And history is just a bunch of stories. And when you get into it, it's very thick in detail, especially when you're getting down to like the philosophy and the legal and like the social climate of what's going on. But I think if we get comfortable telling stories, then we will be comfortable in those settings of being in the past, and it will make more sense why we have certain statues, and it'll make more sense why you want to tear down certain statues. And I don't think there'll be as much controversy when more people are in on it. You know what I mean? They don't have to be necessarily educated to have heard about something. We don't all know what happened in the Holocaust, but we've all heard plenty of stories about it. And so we need to tell more stories, more feminist stories, specifically in this stance, about things that happened to women, really important women that Emily Dickinson and the things that she struggled with, things like that. You know their names, but we don't know about them because their lives don't matter to us. So we should tell more of their stories. I mute my mic.
Yeah, is that all we have to say on this topic? I'd be happy to move on to the next one if I feel like we've covered this one. Well, awesome.
Kay, did you have something you wanted to say earlier?
You guys pretty much summed up everything that I was going to say, and honestly, like, I'm super pumped about the second topic, quite honest.
Awesome. Well, let's move on then. I am fucking vetoing closing statements because I feel like we just say what we just said.
And before you go, just to the audience, hey, follow me if you haven't followed me before. We do this type of content all the time, bringing you really interesting people, talking about hopefully interesting things. Sub to me if you're not currently subbed. Donate bits or subs if you're able to. And we also have a link below to donate through PayPal if you'd rather do that. But all that keeps this channel going. So thank you all for being here. Take it away, City Cat.
Awesome. Yeah. So in September, a Tibetan farmer was murdered while she was live streaming. The victim, oh my gosh, the victim was alleged to have been killed by her ex-husband who lit her on fire. But this follows a long list of abuses by this man. Chinese authorities, one and all, ignored her pleas for help. What are your thoughts on this incident? Can women suffering from domestic violence only get justice when the brutalization is publicized? Is the callous behavior of the Chinese authorities significantly different from our other governments that we all have? Yeah. So we'll go around again, starting with Joe.
Yeah, something I find really interesting about this topic generally is the nature of the killing, which is obviously extremely horrific, and I don't want to redetail it too much, but I think often, particularly in Australia, I don't know what it's like in the UK and the US, but burning and acid attacks and these sorts of things are seen as something that exists very much in other countries and is like a radical attack that exists in other countries. But if you actually look up these sorts of attacks, you'll find, like, I know in Australia they happen very frequently, and there are specific connotations, including the fact that if someone is to survive, you have ruined their appearance. So you have made sure that you have destroyed social capital for this woman in a way that means that you really, really control them. You create a great deal of pain. And I find that to be quite terrifying, especially because we're so quick to say that this is an international issue, that it exists over there, when it really does exist in the spaces that we occupy. I think domestic violence, as we've spoken about, and interpersonal violence, as we've spoken about on the panel before, is critically hard to get taken seriously by police forces, by the legal system. And I think it is very strange to me that we do see, like, in Australia, in our context, Kat obviously knows as well, we have epidemic levels of domestic violence against women. We have more than one woman dying of domestic violence a week. And, you know, I know, like, overnight we had a young girl murdered in Melbourne. And so it's sort of like, how many shock and awe moments do we need to have before something changes in terms of prevention, rather than this reactive sort of, a woman says that this is a problem, and this I think is and I know it's opening statement, so I'll shut up in a second, but it's also the escalation problem, right? Like, at one point, if you don't feel safe and you're being stalked, for instance, that's a very serious thing, but it's not something the police are necessarily going to take seriously because they have no evidence to suggest a physical attack is going to occur. So I'm interested in what people think about what changes need to happen to the system to protect women better.
Awesome. Kay.
Okay, I'm gonna try not to go on like a huge soapbox like rant. But first of all, no, I don't think that it's a country issue or a cultural issue. I think that this is a worldwide issue. I mean, I live in America, first world country. People like to claim that we're the best, but this is a very, very serious issue, even here in America. And a woman that is facing domestic violence in her home, she goes to the police and basically she gets either, oh, I'm sorry, my hands are tied until you have physical evidence of being abused, or you get a little slip of paper that tells them that that person that's trying to physically hurt them cannot come near them, and that's supposed to do something for them. And then you have the power dynamic of women that are in these situations. Quite often, an abuser will make it so that he is the primary or sole breadwinner. She has no finances of her own, no bank account, no way to escape him. Children can be used against you in these situations. There are so many contributing factors. Whenever they go to the one place that they should be able to go to feel safe, they get a shrug and then they get sent on their way. You know, come back whenever he's hit you hard enough that we can get evidence from that. And even then, there's zero guarantee that it's going to stick, and there's zero guarantee that he's even going to face any type of jail time. Most of the time, it does not happen. So women are just stuck in these situations. And I guess at the beginning of the stream, I'm a libertarian. I have very, very little faith in law enforcement. And honestly, I don't see a way that a form of law enforcement that works for a government that literally has proven time and time again not to give a shit about its citizens can effectively handle this matter. Honestly, in my opinion, I think that it should be one of those situations like we see a lot in America with child abuse cases and child sex trafficking and anything regarding children. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations that do this work, and then it's like, okay, we did all the groundwork. We know that this child is being abused. We know that these children are being trafficked. Now we're coming to you for the legal aspect of it because we can't go in and save these children by ourselves because it's against the law. I think that we need something like that. For domestic abuse cases where we have nonprofits, people that are doing this because they're genuinely passionate about helping these women get out of these situations and have a game plan for what to do to help these women once we take them out of the abusive situation. Because you can get a woman out of an abusive situation, but then she's on the street, she has no money, she has nowhere to go, and law enforcement has no game plan on what to do for her if they are successful in removing her from that danger. They have no game plan on what she's going to do to provide for herself if she has children, what she's going to do to provide for her children, and what she's going to do to keep the violence away if that abuser does not go to prison, or if the abuser only goes to prison for a very, very small period of time.
Yeah, so we're gonna skip over Catherine because she has to go last, and we'll go to Maya.
Yeah, so I keep forgetting which key. I think definitely I agree that it's a global issue. But it is more, I feel like some Chinese cultures kind of perpetuate like the kind of Confucianism. I've never had it read. I've only seen it written down. Sorry.
Confucianism.
Confucianism. Thank you so much. Of the kind of the male patriarchy and the female submissiveness, but I don't think that you can just say, "Oh, yes, no, it's just a cultural issue. That's it." It's not an issue here. I live in Scotland. If you can tell by the accent. And I think Scotland's slightly better than the UK. Northern Ireland is worse than the rest of the UK. It's they don't count coercive stuff at all. Under anything, they don't count it. They just think it's not real. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on. I'm going to stop.
Hey guys, before you guys continue, I actually have to go because my kids are very tired. I have to put them to bed.
Okay. It was lovely
But
having you.
Thank you so much for having me
coming.
on.
Yeah.
You guys have a great night.
And Kay,
Great to see you.
Kay, you look like it had the wrong game franchise. It's Dead or Alive. You look like Ayane, Ayane. She's very cute. That's exactly what you look like, and I don't know. I like it a lot.
I'm gonna go look that up right now.
Bye,
guys.
Bye.
Walugie. Jack.
Okay, so I think that this problem is a huge problem when it comes to the officials who represent our law enforcement, right? Like, and I think that maybe this is a problem that extends to most countries with law enforcement. You know, I can only speak when it comes to the United States, right? So, for example, in the United States, in the 1990s, presented before Congress was a study that indicated roughly around 40% of police officers commit domestic violence against their children or partners, right? We didn't really do anything with this data, by the way. It's just kind of hanging out there. And it's a big problem that we just don't address. And it's one of the reasons why in the United States, the efforts of denying gun ownership to people who are convicted of domestic abuse continues to fail. Because if you had a law like that, then a lot of police officers would suddenly be without firearms, which, you know, you can't have that. So it's just kind of this under-addressed issue that no one tends to really talk about. And as far as I know, no one has like really addressed this study. Like there have been some independent investigations that have followed up on this data. But largely it seems to be something that a lot of people just don't want to deal with. And so this is the problem, right? So you have law enforcement, almost half of whom participate in domestic abuse. And then you have the other 60% of officers who are willing to either turn the other eye or downplay the severity or not investigate. And then you have, on top of all of that, the issue of actual, reporting, because oftentimes domestic abuse victims are not willing to go to the police. And oftentimes when they do, there are repercussions for that, especially if police don't necessarily find that there is, enough evidence, whatever that means in domestic abuse cases, to go into it. And so you have, this system whereby the officials who are investigating you have a vested interest in downplaying the severity of your problems. And, also on top of that, tend to, it's again, that's part of the problem why our officials are not taking this as seriously as they should be, and why a lot of our policy doesn't actually address this on a meaningful level, and why we have to put a lot of this onto nonprofit organizations, whereas we really should just address this on a policy level so that we have some way of addressing this domestic violence problem. Because, and this isn't just for the victims of domestic violence, but like a half of all, basically, I think it's like 38% of all mass shooters in the United States have backgrounds of domestic violence. So like, this is a problem that that doesn't just affect women; it affects everybody. So I think that we need to reframe this as like, while it does predominantly affect a lot of women, it also has ramifications for everyone. Like, the knock-on effects are huge. There is a wide variety of reasons why we should work to address this, and it's not just like to help victims of domestic violence, which we should do anyway. So I guess my position on how we would address this is largely we need to reform police. Maybe defund the police, even. Invest in the social services. Put some of the money from the police into the social services that might actually help these people. That don't, social services that don't have 40% of the people working in them participating in domestic violence themselves. Just an idea. Yes, Police 2. The sequel to The Police.
Tony.
Dang, I got so invested in that answer. I almost forgot the question. Okay, so before my value, like my input value depreciates completely, I am gonna, like, this is gonna be like my outro. It's my intro, my outro at the same time. On the question, I guess I remember now. I'm not too sure this is gonna be like helpful or just me expressing anxiety, but I think that our vulnerable populations get kind of, it's very scary to be a woman, and I think that it doesn't get acknowledged or appreciated, and I think that there's a particular set of people who would like to ignore that or diminish. Probably the people who, the moment you start talking about feminism, they immediately want to start talking about men's rights. Like, people like that, they don't really want to hear that, all she was a woman and then she got set on fire, and that is the whole story. That's the whole story. And there's a certain fear that you have inside where, like, okay, you hear, and this is what I mean by I'm not going to be very helpful, but this is not the only story you hear, and I suppose it's because they are public figures, but you hear a lot of streamers, Instagram influencers, people like that who are live on the internet getting murdered even live. And it is absolutely fine to put yourself out there and know that the offense that's going to equal your death is like just being attractive or whatever, like just existing. And that's good. So, and I also want to say that, is it, like, is China going to do anything about it? It's China. It's China. I agree that it's a whole world problem, but when it comes to human rights, China's the last place I'm going to look. So, I do hope that other nations, including our first world nations that are supposed to be all progressive and liberal, can start acknowledging that these problems are really just in general scary and real. And it doesn't have to be to the extent that you want it to be for it to be horrible. You don't have to have pictures of abuse, because sometimes verbal and emotional abuse, I can't get a photo of it, and it's really bad. And it's not, I'd rather you just punch me in the face if it's going to be this terrible. So yeah, I just would like to say that we need a little bit more acknowledgement that it's an issue, and people need to stop just being all, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal, or happens to some people, or just leave is something you'll hear, like, why don't you just leave them? Which, so people have laid out why you obviously cannot just pack up your 4 kids and leave with no money. That just doesn't even make any sense. But I won't ramble on and on because I'm really tired now. Thank you guys for having me. I do stream at High Priestess on Twitch. But
We love you very much. Please get some rest.
Thank you for having me. I'm so sick.
Yeah, thank you for coming through, High Priestess. Really, really appreciate it. Everyone, please go check out her Twitch channel. Link is in the chat. Have a good one.
Later things.
Catherine, are you ready, or would you like Prime and I to go
Yeah.
first?
No, I'll
Yep.
go ahead. So one thing to start out is that I know this from listening to other people's stories, is that people who are being stalked or abused are often in love with their abuser, and they don't particularly feel safe reaching out to the police to come and interact with this abuser because, hey, guess what? Cops just shoot people sometimes. And generally, they're in the business of taking human beings and putting them in very small boxes physically and leaving them there for a period of time and then letting them back out without having done much of anything in that intervening time. The issue here is an extremely large, more general societal issue where we're not focused on restorative, preventative justice, right? Like we need to take the American social worker system and the American police, take all that funding away from both of those, double it, and then bring it all together and found a Department of Social Justice. And when someone has a stalker and you call the Department of Social Justice, they come out like a cop from the cop division, but also several social justice workers who come and interview the person being stalked and the stalker and some friends and family. And they find out, like, oh, this person might be mentally ill or something. Let's put some resources into getting them help, getting them out of any negative habits they might happen to have, like, say, they're an alcoholic or on drugs and need help being better in their life, right? Maybe the victim is financially unable to get away from this place and go somewhere they feel safe. Okay, we could have funding for doing that when people have real reason to be afraid for their lives, because there's plenty of science and studies on this trail that happens that goes from stalking and ends in murdered women. And this is like a fact, and it's a thing that happens. And so the idea that you're going to have a system set up that says, well, we can't do anything until he's getting actually violent. And even then, we're just going to lock him up for a little bit and then let him back out after not having done anything to fix the situation. And quite possibly, he lost his job or got onto drugs for the first time while in prison, because the prisons are full of drugs, because they're awful places where people need something to cope with being locked up in a small box with a bunch of other people locked up in a small box. Like, you're actively making the situation worse. And it's not just women who are being made worse for. These men who do the crimes are having worse lives because of this system. Sometimes it's women doing the crimes and it's men being abused, and it's worse for them too. And it's worse for the police because nobody gets married wanting to abuse their partner. The stress of being a police officer makes people more likely to commit domestic abuse, and that's bad, and we should fundamentally fix the system, because the entire approach that we always have is to apply band-aids and sometimes maybe lift a shield in front of a bullet. It's never to say, like, let's try to make it so that there's less crazed shooters. Let's try to make it so there's less desperate people who are doing desperate things. Let's try to actually prevent the situation from escalating. No, we're going to wait until the situation escalates. Then we're going to bash the bad guy and lock him up. And then we get a big medal for doing the good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I fundamentally agree with both what Jack and Catherine said. I think that problems like this are we don't have the system to help them right now. I feel like something that I would be completely pro is the decommodification of housing. And then what we could do when a woman says, hey, this house I live in, I'm getting fucking killed in it, then they can just put him in a different house. We can't do that now because we don't have decent public housing. We just have what's our option there? Be homeless? it's ridiculous. So I feel like, yeah, we have to defund the police entirely. We have to create a division that specializes in specifically in domestic abuse, and like I, they should focus on cases every time they come up. If a woman goes to a therapist and says, "Hey, this is happening," the therapist should be able to report it and it should be investigated. If they tell their friend, "Hey, this is happening," the friend should be able to report it, because, as Catherine said, people in those situations are often afraid to come forward. They are often in situations where they don't want to come out against their abuser because they're in love with them. Yeah, I think that we need the decommodification of housing. I think that we need to defund the police. I think that we need to fund social programs. I think that, obviously, ideally, people would just stop hitting other people, but that's not going to happen. That's like when it's like, oh, the best way to prevent a rape, don't rape someone. But you know what? People do that. So we need to be able to have things that we can do to prevent it, because we aren't going to do it, but we have to stop other people from doing it. And we have to be able to give people resources to get out of situations that they didn't necessarily put themselves in, that they were dragged into. So I think that, yeah, we don't have the system fundamentally will not work with like with this situation. We can't, it doesn't work. Shit doesn't work. We don't fix anything. Nothing has been fixed. Yeah, we had that statistic, like Jack said, like 40% of cops beat their wives, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. I guess we should continue to give these people guns and like free passes to do whatever they want because they're cops. It's insane, and I completely agree with the rehabilitative justice thing. I'm a huge like, we need to completely reform the prison system. It's ridiculous.
Can I just step
yeah,
in real quick? And it's just to say, like, while we don't have the system for this right now, it's largely a result of us not wanting to, right? Like, not enough of the public doesn't know that we need these systems in order to address the problem. So it's really just a matter of reminding people that we need these things, and that they're and getting the will to do them. Like, that's the only thing preventing us from fixing these problems.
And to jump off that, I think part of the solution might be a combination of a cultural shift to people exposing how much money they make and how much they donate casually. And if your friends don't do that, shame them. And then a bigger emphasis on nonprofits, things like Wikipedia and things like these groups that Kay was talking about earlier, that actually go out and do all the research necessary in stalking cases and then gift wrap that information to the cops so that maybe the police will actually do something. Because you know what? We're stuck in a capitalist hellhole, and there's one thing that matters in this world, and it is voting with green, hard cash, right? So you take your money, you bring it to a nonprofit, you donate it to that one in particular, and it has to show you that it's getting a job done. And you don't have to wait 4 years to vote again next time, like with government, right? If they stop doing a good job, you stop donating. You will apply proper market pressure, as capitalism is supposed to work, and actually get real changes done. It would have to come alongside this social shaming aspect where, like, look, you're a good Christian, you should be donating to these, and if you don't, I'm going to shame you, because that's how humans are motivated. That's anarchy for any, like, anarcho-capitalist in chat. That's how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, so I'll say that first of all, I wanted to thank Joe for being kind enough to come up with this topic. It was a really interesting topic. The abuse was terrible in this particular case. Shocking. But, like, you know, I put a bunch of things in this question. Part of it was like, you know, are things actually much better in your own country, right? When it comes to violence against feminine bodies, right? So this woman being burned like this, this type of violence. Well, first of all, I know this happens certainly in Mexico. Mexico is a place where a lot of femicide happens. Like this is quite common there. I don't hear about incinerations in the States for cis women, but trans women will face this level of violence. This amount of hate, and at the same time, like the authorities completely ignoring you, right? Like not taking your actions seriously. So I didn't want, and I don't think you guys have done this, but I didn't want this to be like a, China is bad, right? Like a thing that China is doing worse than everyone else, right? Because I think that would be a huge mistake. I think then it hides like the culpability that we all have in our own countries. It hides the pain of women in first world Western democracies, right? Who go through very similar things and get very similar responses from authorities. And yeah, so I wanted this to definitely be more of an international conversation, but I think the brutality is definitely something that we also simply can't ignore, because like this like comes from like just a deep well of hate. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how that changes. Maybe it's because I don't understand the cause. Maybe it's because I don't understand all the causes. There's lots of different causes, I guess, for domestic violence. I don't know what in particular. Well, So this person had been abusing this woman for quite a while, and then she got a divorce from this man. I was going to say gentleman, but he doesn't deserve that, obviously. She got a divorce from this man, and she tried to run away, but he came and threatened her. Right? He threatened her and her two kids, and so she went to the authorities, saying like I'm being threatened, right? And they did nothing. They ignored her, right? It's like other people have it worse. And so to save her own life and the lives of her children, she ended up remarrying this guy, right? And then, right, the abuse began once again. The authorities, when she approached them once more, said, "Well, you chose to remarry him, so this is your fault." After that, she escapes to her family members, right, to her house, and then eventually into the mountains. She was again a poor Tibetan farmer, and she escapes to the mountains. He gets word of her. She's a streamer, right? In case you missed that part, she was live streaming, and then she was attacked and killed when he burst in. So like, I feel like understanding these things is important because I think we're, especially in the West, we're very desensitized to these things. Like we understand like the concept of an abused woman, and we understand it's wrong, but like I feel like we have a very specific image of what that looks like, and we don't see like the end result of these things when they're ignored. So I just like don't want to escape that part.
Yeah, it's really because there are often situations where there are no good routes for a woman to take, right? Like, for example, I was in an abusive relationship relatively recently, and the person involved in this worked in my industry, knew a bunch of people in my industry, was more influential in the industry, and was eventually, I found out, essentially attempting to blackmail me, attempting to blackmail several other people in the industry, was manipulating at least a dozen individuals, was and basically just absolutely capable of ruining a lot of people's lives. And they're given how things are set up, there's no recourse against someone like that because it's not like physical violence, and if I just come forward with just my story, people aren't going to believe me, right? Because I don't have as large a platform as this other person. And like I was lucky in that there was a specific situation that came up that brought all of this out at the same time, right? And I was able to get out of that situation. But a lot of people aren't so lucky. Like they get caught in these abusive situations, and they're physically abusive or just emotionally manipulative and awful, and you can't get away from it because of how you're economically situated, the social environment that you're in, whatever. And so we need to be able to provide I guess, an escape route in that environment. We need to be able to have some kind of agency to pave the way for women and men too, frankly, because men are also abused. Men also get into abusive relationships where they are the victims. And while this is overwhelmingly, it seems to be that women are the ones who are abused. You know, it might be that men are abused much more than we know currently because of underreporting when it comes to that.
Because the way the system is set up in every country I've ever heard of is that the abuser gets away with lots of things, right? Because look, you have to prove all this evidence before the system does anything, because what the system is set up to do is drastic, shitty action that's not typically very useful or helpful. The system's there to shoot someone who's about to stab you, or if they've done bad enough things, lock them up. And that's just not the good system that we should have. And yeah, go ahead, Jack.
Oh, I just wanted
to...
sorry.
Go back, Jack.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish my thought real quick. I think the City Cat brought up a really, really good point. And it's that by decommodifying the things we need to live in our society, that provides a way for people to escape from their situations. Because right now, if you're a poor Tibetan farmer, for example, or a poor farmer in the Midwest in America, you know, your options to get away are extremely limited, especially if you have to pay for a new place to live with food and electricity and, you know, the things you need to live in a modern society. These things are extremely limited to you if you need to pay for all of them on top of getting away from your abuser. And again, most people in the United States, they don't have more than $400, and that was before the pandemic. So like, yeah, we need these escape routes, but we also need the economic freedom for people to escape if they need to.
Yeah, I think a big point on that as well is with women being the majority of domestic abuse victims, at least in the statistics that we have been presented with. Women are more likely to be a stay-at-home parent who doesn't have a job, who relies on her entire income from her partner. They will have children, and they can't just run away with a child. That's what, you're gonna be homeless with a kid, now you're putting the kids hunger in danger? That's nuts. You've got to stay with this abusive person because they pay for everything. And yeah, so I feel like those avenues are vitally important.
And probably often when a woman is abusing a man and there are children involved, the man is just more likely in our society to have the resources to leave. And so that would turn out in the stats as well.
Yeah. Joe and then Maya.
Yeah, a few things. I think we covered a lot of this a few weeks ago when I brought up decriminalizing domestic violence again. And I don't want to go over that again, but it is interesting. Maybe I will do a stream on it at length on my stream, just so we don't rehash it here again. But it is that focus on victim-centered approaches and transformative justice, and not a non-reactionary approach to domestic violence. That's one. Two, the statistics, yes, there's certainly going to be underreporting when it comes to male victims of domestic violence, but I want to be very clear that even with underreporting, there is nowhere near an equivalence. Under patriarchy, there is nowhere near ever going to be as many victims of domestic violence who are male as there are female or just non-male. So I want to make that very clear. But I think a really important point when it comes to burning specifically, the nature of this attack, burning or murder or an acid attack, we know that a time when a woman is most at risk when it comes to domestic violence is directly after she leaves. And it is to do with, yes, there of course is a number of variables that go into why acts of domestic violence occur, but we do know that a key reason for domestic violence or interpersonal violence is, or intimate partner violence, sorry, is possession and ownership. And if like this is a situation where this woman did leave, and I think it's important because so often we say to women in these situations, why didn't she leave? Or you should leave, or we should make it easy for the woman to leave. But it's not enough to make it easy for women to leave. It's ensuring that they are safe once they leave. And that's another thing. We talk about providing housing for women with children and lives. Why should they have to move? We need to provide and find a way to sell perpetrator housing. Because if you're the problem, you should have to move. We don't want to uproot entire families and lives because there's an issue, because that might be another thing stopping women from getting safety. But it's about securing women after they leave, not just encouraging women to leave and making it possible for them to leave, because that is actually when they are at the greatest risk.
Yeah, I mean, I want to stress that in no way was I saying that there is an equivalence between men, but I do feel like it's just important that we understand it as like something that again, affects all kinds of different people, no matter where they are on the gender spectrum. And by having that understanding, like, I guess making sure that we at the very least we have the optics in place here for, like, if there are people out on PrimeCayes stream or whoever is streaming this, understand that when we're talking about domestic abuse, we are by no means erasing any of the domestic abuse experienced by men, because oftentimes when conversations like this are had, you get like those men's right activists who are like, well, they didn't talk about men in this conversation, and it's like, well, this is a conversation that benefits men too. I just want to have that covered, because it's an optics thing,
And to add just slightly, it's not intrinsic to men in any way that more men would be doing these things. It's because specifically that we're in a patriarchy that shapes men into these specific shapes. And specifically, I've been talking about Western chauvinism a lot lately, and it is a cult about self-mutilation and chopping parts of yourself off to fit into a very specific little box that you're supposed to be, both as a man or a woman. And by doing this, by stripping men of things like their emotional intelligence, they turn into quote unquote monsters, right? They're self-mutilating away parts of their humanity. And then when something causes them to feel really strong emotions, like their property getting threatened by other people, suddenly they're like, I'm in a rage and women are property, so might as well burn my property to make a point. And then it plays out in exactly like this.
So one of our illustrious hosts has to step away. That's okay. Thanks for being here, Joe. Joe, also known as the Silly Serious, runs her own channel, and sounds like she's going to have a really interesting topic coming up. So you guys should go and check her out. I'm going to shout her out in chat, but she's also going to shout herself out too. And she doesn't do a good job of it. I'm going to do it for you. So, Joe.
Hey guys. No, I stream sometimes. I'm really busy at the moment, so I don't have a schedule, or I'll just stream when I want to stream. But I don't know. It might be fun. Yeah, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
Joe is fantastic, right? She's well educated. She's well spoken. She brings up topics and puts them in a interesting perspective, interesting light that I think is unique here, right? Especially in the Twitch politics space, right? She won't say these things about herself, but I will say them for her. That's what friends do. Okay, Joe, thank you. I know you're very busy. You have a fantastic day. Really thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so
Joe-
much.
Joe-
It's been really fun talking.
One last question. Who are the fine puppies behind you?
Oh, okay. This is Ringo.
Oh,
And this is Apple. And they're sleeping.
I love them so much.
Thank you. They're my little research assistants. They do a terrible job. Okay. Bye,
Lovely
guys. It's
seeing
been
you.
so nice.
Bye.
I love when people talk in their pet voices.
Right?
They're sleeping. They're having a sleep. Oh yeah, Prime hates fun and like cute pets. By the way,
Pets are fine. Like
Prime is allowed to have his taste that includes some cool anime and some less cool anime and some cool things and not really rad things like talking in a little baby voice to animals,
no,
which is
he
fun.
doesn't believe that any pets or animals should be described as cute.
What?
I talked to him last
I
night.
didn't say
and he
that.
was like,
I didn't
you
say.
said,
Oh.
you said why would I use the word cute to describe anything other than a cute girl? That is what you said.
Prime coming in with the most controversial opinion of the night.
Because I had my cat on my bed behind me and she was being cute, and Prime was like, "It's a cat," and I was like, "I hate you."
What's your cat called?
Her name is Ivy. I hope she pops in today.
Aww.
Are we done with this topic? I feel like.
I think
Are
so.
we? I feel like
Maybe.
Can I bring up something about it?
Yeah, go ahead, Maya.
I was in my comments. People are talking about like towards the Nordic states and stuff, and I'm including Finland in this. And I'm mainly talking about Finland because they have they're known as kind of revolutionizing the prison systems, which is a very good thing, and they focus on rehabilitation of the offender instead of just locking people up for no reason in a little cell, chucking them out, have a good time. They really do focus on it. They've got like their open prison system things, and they educate prisoners a lot on AI stuff, I believe, and really towards the workplace. But they're held up as well as the kind of beacon of gender equality. But in Nordic countries, it's like women's rights are protected by the public sphere, but not as much by the private one. And they have one of the highest EU murder rates at the hands of like intimate partners, even though they're this radical place and whatnot. But they still have an astronomically, that sounded like I said that, I'm sure, astronomically high rate, even though they've done all these things. I'm not saying that these things shouldn't be done. I just think it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's largely... I mean, this might be a problem we never fully solve, right? Because, like, having a partner means opening yourself up to them, right? It means being vulnerable. But I think that there are a bunch of things that we can do to mitigate the problem, definitely. And there's probably a bunch of things that like Finland can do as well to mitigate the problem. Like I'm not going to hold up Finland and say they're a utopia. So like I just think that especially when it comes to like the United States, where we just like whatever, we have mass shootings and half of them are done by people who participate in domestic violence. We're not going to do anything about it. It's fine. We need to take some steps, at least in the United States, and sounds like Finland probably also needs to take some steps, but those steps are probably different than where the United States is, you know? It's relative.
I think that maybe saying that like Finland has like the highest rate or something, that is like the highest reported, right? I think that just means that women might feel safer reporting than in other areas.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I realized I meant to bring up, like, it could just be that whole kind of like survivorship bias thing that you're looking at the stats. You can't. It's difficult to compare global stats in general, let alone on topics like this, because especially like we were talking about China before, there's a massively high amount of mistrust for the law, for the police, and I understand why people would not want to report it. So of course they're going to have lower levels than it actually is, and then yeah.
It's actually very similar to the US in that way, because not only are there massive levels of mistrust in those states, but they're both states that no one with a particularly sound and unbiased mind wants to take their stats at face value. And they don't really publish stats, and in a lot of cases don't keep stats that they really probably should be. Yeah, it's a really big problem. And for Finland specifically, as far as I understand it, I don't think that is a country that has like less patriarchy in general than most other countries. Like it might be a little better, but it's not significantly better to the point that it's not a thing. And there's also like a bigger cultural problem that is woven into like the intersectional hierarchy, but it's the concept of owning your romantic partner, and relatedly, in cases of child abuse, owning your children. There are still massive amounts of every global culture basically that is based on ownership and control. And that's a fundamental part of most of the cultures that still exist, because most of them either are or have been heavily, heavily influenced by colonialist countries that took over chunks of land and made it theirs and changed it significantly. And Christianity itself has spread to almost every country in some form or another, and it's a very specific religion that has been warped time and time again into like the fascist wet dream for controlling people and splitting them up.
So I think it's well, we oftentimes when we talk about domestic violence in the West, right? We talk about how boys are raised and socialized in the West, right? And how that is inherently damaging, and something I agree with. I largely agree with these takes. However, I think it's interesting that if you look around the world, you'll still find this level of violence everywhere, seemingly, right? I'm trying to find a place where I don't find these things. I don't know. Maybe you don't find these things in the Amazon rainforest and those undiscovered tribes. I don't know. But like everywhere we find these things. So I think we might have to actually change the way we discuss violence towards women, femicide, and the exact causes of these things, right? Because we see this in the Chinese context, we see this in the Indian context, right? Like there's lots of stories about horrific violence against Indian women. We see it the same thing about the authorities who don't care, who devalue women's lives, right? So I think there's something much more to this than how we in the West usually conceptualize this thing. Maybe some sort of. Well, I don't know. I guess I'm about to draw conclusions that I probably best I don't.
So Prime, with the things you just said, I think attach really well to what I was trying to get across. Is that this is very much, it seems, a problem of that sort of global imperialist culture that got spread through most civilizations. And when we think of some civilizations that maybe had better rates of things like this, it's like, hey, Native Americans maybe had much better rates, right? Or maybe tribes in the rainforest, right? And those groups innately don't have any records, not even because they didn't keep any, but because those cultures have been destroyed and whatever record keeping they have is gone. And like the Western culture wouldn't trust their records anyway, because the narrative is like that they're just like tribes of savages, right? And so I very much believe there is a global culture that exist in all these countries, whether or not like there's specific differences between them.
Yeah, like that's what I was gonna add too. Similarly, It's the legacy of colonialism and imperialism and white supremacy. It's the same reason why global beauty standards are largely oriented towards white people. It's not because like people of other like skin colors aren't absolutely gorgeous, because that's just definitely not true. But if you go to China, if you go to Japan, if you go to insert most countries on Earth, the beauty standards skew towards Western beauty standards because we exported those around the world along with our culture, along with our economics, along with our military mights, and so on and so forth. And so, like in India, for example, there is an extremely lasting and indelible impact from how the British colonized the subcontinent for 200 years. Like by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but like over the course of 200 years, around 1 billion people died in India as a result of British colonialism. And so the people who survived that massive culling to extract wealth from India, you know, they had to adapt in order to survive, and they adapted by adopting as a cultural movement the ways of the British people, like the British crown, because that was more acceptable and it was more profitable. It was easier to survive if you did so. And that's a process that has been repeated time and time again around the globe, and it has instilled, I think, this innate sense of patriarchy, even in societies that were not historically patriarchal. Whether you look at in Indonesia, like the suppression of, I think that the word I'm looking for is hirja. That might be India as well. But it was a third gender that was historically common in, again, either the Philippines or India. I can't remember which. And this is something that we have seen, and the imposition of these cultural norms, I think, has had an impact that has been historically understated, especially in our academics. And it's something that I think might contribute to a lot of these views of women. And I mean, I would need more data to go on than to say more, I think. But I think it's probably a really strong relationship there.
So I kind of want to push back on this. To a certain extent, like I agree with much of what you're saying, because I've said much the same things, right? That like in certain cultures, especially when you're talking about the gender spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots of cultures have a very expansive view of the gender spectrum, right? Far before modern Western societies had stumbled onto these things, right? So you have the Europeans, they impose their standards of gender norms on these places, right? Say whatever you're doing is bad, corrupt, immoral, against Jesus, makes them cry or something, whatever, right? And so they push these around, they make them illegal, and then now you see in so many of these places, that they have vicious violence against the LGBT community, right? Because they don't accept these people going outside these gender norms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, right, once these European and Western nations, right, have advanced past these things, right, so have started to become more progressive, then we look at these colonized nations and say, oh, like, what's wrong with you? This is savage behavior. You should really expand your thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
It fucking bothers me to no fucking end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my God. But anyway, so I agree with you there, 100%, right? But I think there actually is evidence that, like, before that, India was colonized, that like there was like incredible violence against women. I don't think that we can simply blame. I like blaming Europe. I love blaming Europeans for things. I don't think we can blame them completely for this. I think this is a much deeper issue that is not Western culture. Western culture is not a thing, but like Western European specific.
I before Catherine jumps in, I do want to say, like, it was not my intention to portray like India as like some blissful utopia prior to the British colonization. Definitely not. Like, all of these places had problems. Native American culture had problems. Like, there are all kinds of these problems all across the world. No society, no civilization is perfect. But I think that maybe there have been different standards at different points in time where this wasn't as big an issue. My only statement is I think that we codified that on a global scale for a lot of different places, and that we need to figure out a way to kind of unfuck all of that, you know? Catherine.
So yeah, so Prime, I think we need to get universal discourse onto one of these panels and specifically have a topic about the reasons different cultures or nations over in history have formed into the ways they are. They are really, really credentialed in this particular situation. And I happened to be having a conversation with them recently about the creation of pastoralism, when societies start breeding, doing animal husbandry, the way that their societies shift and their cultures shift, and they start to bring those ideas into their own lives, and their cultures start to be more about like dominant males and their genes and how they pass them on through the use of like cows, right? And how women are like property and tools of the men to advance the genetic line, and how these things. So I think what we're talking about is like, because European specific imperialism has at this point in time very recently infected the whole fucking planet. A lot of what we're looking at right now is specific to that, but there's also, if we rewound time 400 years, obviously a lot, maybe most nations would still have extremely similar, maybe even worse, maybe, who knows, problems with domestic abuse and women's bodies not mattering or anything. But because this ideology is so built up into our current state and time, I think it's really important to focus on it to a degree as we do.
Yeah. Oh, first of all, I love Universal Discourse, and would love to have her on.
Yeah.
Once again, she's fantastic. So I mean, I would love to
Awesome.
have any excuse to talk with her. But yeah, I feel like it's just so easy to like. I mean, to go to our usual like progressive talking points on these things, right? And this is what I'm just trying to expand here, right? That's why again I want to make this an international conversation rather than just like a Chinese thing. Like the Chinese did a bad thing, look at them again, right? Like, because we see this all the time. We see. And I guess there's no point describing.
Well, just to say, Prime, we have succeeded, I think, as a panel in not making this about China. I do not think we have focused almost at all about China today.
No, yeah, I get that, but I'm saying like I've seen like horrific cases, right? There's a famous one out of Japan. I won't describe it because it's actually extremely horrific. What happened? But like I see this replicated. And I can't put this all on European imperialist masters. Like it definitely can't all be them. To see how this is so well replicated, right? And then like the attitudes are so much identical. Like I feel like there has to be something more here that we can explore. And I think that the idea you were talking about, like the whole pastoral thing, sounds really interesting and maybe something to touch on. But like, I think the discourse that we usually have here is just so limited, and it's something. And I get why it is. Like, why wouldn't it be more cultural specific, right? Like, it's harder to take a long historical view of all these things, right? So that makes sense. But I just want to do something more than that. I think there's a lot of room to do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that there is also like it's not just like a cultural thing. I think that is an important element of it. I think that there are multiple layers here. Like again, like nothing is ever like so straightforward, right? Like you look at a chair, you're like, well, it's just a chair. That's pretty simple, right? But then you start breaking it down. It's like, oh, the chair is made out of chemical compounds, and those chemical compounds are made out of, molecules, and those molecules are made out of atoms. And like, you keep breaking it down, it gets more and more complex, right? So like, when we look at this issue, like, you have like the cultural element, you have the imperialist element, and I think you also have the capitalist element, because like, again, like the City Cat and I were talking about earlier, like there is this economic aspect, and at the moment capitalism is the dominant economic form, and it could be that there is an element of capitalism where if you have a dominant economic ownership or perceived ownership over another person, you have this that has a negative effect. I think that there are these people, and maybe it's a commonality among human beings, where if we are given like this domineering power over another person's environment, over another person's livelihood, life, that there is an element of being able to misuse that power. And that could very well be. And again, I would argue the solution to that is socialism, more democracy, more decommodifying things to reduce the economic power of individuals over others. All those good things.
So I want to jump
agree.
in.
Hold on. I want to say that I really completely agree of what you said there. I thought it was really good. I like the idea that, like when you're talking about the chemical compounds and breaking that down, history is not like singular moments in the way we usually think of them, right? A very like a cause and effect type of way, right? It's like a tidal wave of like small events that build up into like what we see today. Right. It's very hard to conceptualize that, right? like you have to have like a really like large view of history to see this, right? But when you start breaking certain events down, right, and seeing all the ways they're interconnected with the past, right, and not saying, well, okay, like it was this president, and the president made this decision, right, and so that directly led to this, right? Well, what was that historical context around that moment, right? What led to that, right? And so I think there's, when it comes to this femicide, right, and devaluing of women's lives, there is the entirety of human history,
right,
I think, goes into this. Right, one of these things. It's a defining trait of so many human civilizations. So yeah, it's a huge topic, and I don't have the learning. I don't have the view to probably contextualize this for everyone. But like it's like an ongoing thing. So
yeah,
I agree, Jack.
I like. Someone, Jojo the Slayer, I think in your chat made this observation, but capitalism is 16th or 18th century things. This is true. But prior to that, in feudalism, the long, lengthy history of feudalism before that, and like the growth of empires, women were used as bartering tools. They were literally seen as property. So like we have like thousands of years of history where women are treated like livestock. Even oh, sorry.
I was going to say, just to illustrate for chat who aren't all socialist, and as we might on the panel understand, feudalism and capitalism are very similar. The difference between them largely is that by molding feudalism into capitalism, we took away the kings and the monarchs, and we put in place this abstract concept of the state, right? But there's still the same fundamental system of the state being in charge and of enforcing violence and laws, and whoever figure happens to be in the government at the time doing all these things top down, and there's still a value-based system where it used to be just gold or something, right? But now we use money. But those are just the specifics of two very similar systems.
Yeah, I like again, you can go back all the way like biblical times, right? Like in I know a lot of people tend to gloss over some of the aspects of the Sodom and Gomorrah story for various reasons. I went back and had to revisit that on my own stream. Yeah, you have situations where like, oh, these two strangers are here, and for some reason the entire village wants to rape them. Here, take my daughters instead, please. Like that, like this is how women were treated. They were treated as property, and so they were expendable. And so when you move into feudalism, that definitely continues. And when you move into capitalism, for a long time, even under capitalism, women were viewed as commodities to be bought and sold. And so what I'm saying is we have this long lineage of this idea ingrained into society, whether it's Western or Eastern or whatever, where women were commodified to a great extent. And I think that ignoring that and how that plays into how people in general think today is a massive oversight, because again, I think in these domestic violence altercations, there is this at least innate subconscious view that women are expendable property to use as you see fit. And I think that maybe the best way to combat that is by moving into a different economic system where it is explicitly clear that the freedoms of everyone involved are protected and respected, and that involves having economic freedom as well.
Right. And yeah, so there's a bigger, well, it's not bigger, there's just another extremely large issue, right? We do need to move away from capitalism and into socialism, but that won't be enough because our entire fundamental culture is set up poorly. And one of the specific ways we could drill into that we don't usually is that relationships as we do them between humans, we don't do them well. We don't do them in preparation for what's going to happen if they break up. And we have added this new ability to divorce each other after you get married. And there is a problem with that. And it's not that we've added that ability. No, it's that we haven't taken that into consideration and fundamentally changed how we set up our situations, our relationships. So you should fundamentally, if you're in a relationship, make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity and power to leave safely if they ever need to. And if that's not part of your relationship, that's not a safe or healthy relationship. If you actually love each other, then you should be perfectly happy to make whatever sacrifice and compromise is necessary to achieve the goal of everyone in that relationship having financial and social and everything else security to leave if they need to. And personally, as a poly person who thinks about this aspect a lot, I think monogamy, while not the devil, it has a lot of bad aspects when it's the default. Right? There's nothing wrong with people choosing for themselves, hey, I like being monogamous. But as the default, unassumed situation, we have this culture of ownership of your partner. And it's a culture that, once again, is a huge part of driving these crimes against women, right? And this is not at all specific to Western imperialism. This is just something that's in a whole bunch of cultures. And it's this idea of like, look, I found my soulmate, they're mine forever. And that's not super healthy. You know what's more healthy? Saying, I found this awesome person and I'm going to choose to identify them as my soulmate, for free because I feel like it. And maybe we'll change in the future and that'll be okay because we'll be different people and we'll choose to split up. And if they change and I don't change, well, then they'll split up with me because I love them. I don't want to force anyone to be with me no matter how I feel, right? That's a much healthier culture that doesn't really exist at all.
If you love someone, let them go.
Tumble, do you have anything you want to say on this topic?
I don't think so. I think everything's been covered very well, eloquently. That's what I wanted.
It's nice that you had trouble coming up with the word eloquent. Very meta.
Also, can I just add one more thing? Because Catherine threw kind of a curveball at the end there about like polyamory and monogamy. I just want to point out, the term "it takes a village to raise a child." Well, that was originally a very literal term. Like, you know, the entire village would be involved in raising children and families, and now we've boiled it down to, well, the only correct way of raising children is with 2 people. Well, but like, you know,
Yeah.
maybe it would be better if we
Yeah.
went back to having more people pitch in. You know,
Yeah.
The concept of having 2 frazzled parents all the time. You know, maybe it'd be good if parents got a little bit of a break too by having more people to help handle their kids. Just throwing that idea out there for chat to kind of chew over in their brain.
Yeah. If
yeah.
2 parents is better than 1 parent, and 1 parent's better than 0 parents, a whole bunch of parents would be even better.
Temple, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Adding to that point, I think I want to see more people who are just friends, and they just have children. I don't understand why it's only people in relationships can have children. It's like, it doesn't click in my brain, but I think it would be great to see people choose that for themselves, obviously. But it would be, a nice change.
I do just I try not to watch chat too much when I'm on your panels, Prime, but but just as like a point, guys, like, yeah, I mean, you could hire a maid with 2 parents, or you could just have friends who are willing to come over and watch your kids for a while, you know? Like, there's no reason the people who watch your kids have to be married. Like,
oh no, there is a wonderful reason, and it's so that if you get a better job, you and your family unit can seamlessly lift up and move to another town and sit down there and seamlessly and with no interruption to the flow of capital, you have moved to a more economically desirable spot for the country at large, not for your family, but oh well.
I'm liking these radical politics on the panel tonight.
Always. So I think we'll probably move on. So first, I wanted to say, hey everyone, if you haven't followed me yet, please give me a follow. If you're not currently subbed, please sub to this channel. We bring this content to you all the time. And if you're able to, please donate bits, donate subs. And also we have a donation button, for a PayPal donation button down below. If you scroll down below the stream, please use that to help support this channel, help keep all this content coming. We do like lots of different panels like this, invite-only panels, such as this one. And also we do walk-on panels, which is what's coming up next. Where audience members just like you, yes, you, can be involved. So if any of that interests you, please again give me a follow and considering supporting the channel if you can. Thank you so much. So yeah, I think we'll actually end this here because half the panel disappeared. And then the other topics aren't current events, so we can save them for some other time. Riverboat Jack actually gave us a really interesting topic I'd love to discuss, but we'll maybe save that into have another point, another time, yeah. And then of course we'd love to have Riverboat Jack here as well when that happens. So yeah, I'll give you a quick outros. And once again, guys, the stream is not ending. The stream is not ending. Oh God, the stream is not ending. We're gonna replace the panel we have here with another group of people. All right, so the stream is not ending. Please don't go anywhere.
Walk-on panel, right, Prime? People from the community can come on and they can argue with me specifically because we're gonna stay here specifically for some of you shitters in chat.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah. So Riverboat, thanks for coming through. Once again, really enjoy having you here. It's been a blast. I really love the points that you bring, perspective.
Thank you.
That you have. So Riverboat, tell the world about you, where they can find you.
Yeah. You can find me over on Twitter at RiverboatJack, and you can follow me on Twitch if you like my takes or want more spicy convos. I've been having all of those this week, all of the spiciness. You can follow me over on Twitch at RiverboatJack as well. And yeah, if, I guess more about me, I have a degree in English literature, and I don't really use it all that much, and I also have a minor in medieval history, so I somehow weirdly use that more these days, but yeah, I'll probably be sticking around for the open panel too, so come on and disagree with me.
Sounds fantastic. Next, we have the brand new superstar coming into our channel, Tumble Dryer Maya. Thanks for being here, friend. It was really nice getting to know you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was lovely to get to know you guys too. Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to have you sometime in the future come back and hear more of your opinions on all these things. Please tell the world where to find you.
You can find me on Twitch at Tumble Dry Maya. It's Tumble Dry Maya for everything, and Twitter and Instagram and everything. You know, yeah.
Around somewhere, yes. But if you name it, then she's probably on it, right? So we'll exactly. Tumble Dryer Meyer. Again, thank you so much for coming through. It was really nice of you. I'm really glad that Turing introduced us. Okay. Next, Catherine Dominates. Catherine Dominates. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being, of course, such an active panelist and having such a logical perspective on things. So anyway, I really appreciate you always coming on to my space and sharing your time with my channel. Tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. We're over at twitch.tv/Catherine Dominates. And if you found this panel good, if you found our presentation on this panel good, go and subscribe directly, because hey, we don't stream a whole lot. You know, we've got some mental health issues that keep us, and other things going on in our lives that keep us from streaming a whole lot on our own channel. But we do these panels very consistently, and so you are absolutely going to get something out of your subscription, including some of the actual best emotes on Twitch, right? You can see in the chat there, Trans Satanist. You can see that Ooh Strike. Go out there, pay your union dues by subscribing to my channel, and represent the union with your unionized emote. Get everyone to enable Ooh in their Twitch chats. We'll take over the Twitch space.
Thank you for that. Catherine Dominates. Everyone, please go check out Catherine Dominate over on their channel. Last but absolutely not least, we have one of my favorite people. We have the City Cat. City Cat, thanks for coming in here. Thanks for hosting. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being wonderful. Thanks for being amazing. You know I love you so much, City Cat. So tell the world about yourself. Pro streamer. She's a pro streamer on top of things at all times. Amazing. This is what I love. This is the amazing ability of the Twitch.
Claim to be a pro streamer.
Hi,
I'm not a pro streamer. I'm just a cat in my bedroom trying to have some fun. Okay, I'm adorable. Everything I do is cute. Okay, so that was cute. The fact when I fucked up, that was adorable. So shut up.
He does the same thing. Is he just as adorable when he does it?
No, it's look at me.
Okay. Oh, all right, sure. All right. Well, whatever. I'm gonna disagree with you on there.
And follow my Twitter if you want cute cat girl photos. That's where I post a lot of my cat girl photos. And yeah, I cosplay sometimes on my Instagram. Woo, yeah. I'm adorable, and I have really good takes.
Yeah.
And
you can hear them.
And just so everyone knows, this is not City Cat cosplaying. This is just City Cat as she goes about her normal days. She cosplays separately from this normal look that she has.
This is just me. This isn't a cosplay. I do like
people
dress
might
up
not
stuff.
realize that.
Oh.
Do when you cosplay, do you only cosplay Catgirl characters?
No, I've only cosplayed one Catgirl character. I do Harley Quinn cosplays, and I did an Unis Honest cosplay, which was cool. Pro streamer, ooh. Yeah.
City Cat is a Catgirl for real, and does cosplay as not a Catgirl because she's actually a Catgirl.
Yeah.
Prime is not impressed.
He doesn't find my uwus cute, and I love his reactions to it. It makes me want to do it even more.
Oh God. Wow. Where is this relationship? I thought we were talking about compromises last night. When we're not talking about compromises, is this the part where we compromise? Okay, all right. Anyway, Moving on, I thank everyone for being here. You're all welcome, panelists, to come on to the walk compound that we're just about to have. But if not, that's okay. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy with me and my community here. We'd love to have you all back in the future. Thanks so much.